Dear students, how are you all? Hope you are all well by the grace of Almighty. Today we are going to read Unit 13 under the title Food Adulteration, Lesson 2. And the lesson title is Eating Habit and Hazards. Actually, there is a short story in Lesson 2, Unit 13. The story name is The Luncheon and it is written by William Somerset Maugham. Somerset Maugham was born on 25th January 1874 and died 16 December 1965. He was a famous British novelist, playwright and short story writer. His writings are famous for lucid and witty style and also for a profound understanding of human nature. But before reading the short story, we have to learn some new words. Actually, you will find this vocabulary in your textbook at the last of the story. The title of the story is The Luncheon. So luncheon means a formal lunch. This is the image of Latin quarters in Paris. And this is cemetery. Okay. Now we are reading the story. Please follow me. I I caught sight of her at the play, and in answer to her beckoning, I went over during the interval and sat down beside her. The story starts in the present time. Now, the writer is watching a theatre or enjoying a theatre, and there a lady waving hands towards him. So during the interval, the writer went beside the lady and sat down. It was long since I had last seen her, and if someone had not mentioned her name, I hardly think I would have recognized her. Actually, the lady who beckoned the writer met each other a long time ago, and the writer couldn't even remember her name. Okay. When someone made the writer remember her name, then he recognized the lady. She addressed me brightly. Well, it's many years since we first met. How time does fly. We are none of us getting any younger. Do you remember the first time I saw you? You asked me to luncheon. Then the lady started speaking, and she also tried to remember the writer about their first meeting, which was a lunch. Did I remember? The writer asked himself. It was 20 years ago, and I was living in Paris. Then the story went 20 years back, when the writer was living in Paris. I had a tiny apartment in the Latin Quarter overlooking a cemetery, and I was earning barely enough money to keep body and soul together. 20 years ago, the writer was living in one of the Latin quarters at Paris, and in front of his quarter there was a cemetery. And at that time, the writer started his writing career, and so his earning was very little, and it was very hard for him to live on. She had read a book of mine and had written to me about it. The lady read one of the writer's book and wrote a letter to the writer about that book. Okay, dear friends, keep in mind that at that time, mobile phone or cell phone was not invented. So letter was one of the medium of communication. I answered, thanking her, and presently I received from her another letter saying that she was passing through Paris and would like to have a chat with me. But her time was limited, and the only free moment she had was on the following Thursday. So at first the writer answered to the lady, and then the second letter came from the lady, where she proposed the writer to meet him and also to arrange a lunch for him. And as her time is very short, she could only meet the writer on the next Thursday. She was spending the morning at the Luxembourg, and would I give her a little luncheon at Foyers afterwards? The lady proposed to the writer to arrange a lunch at Foyot on Thursday, because in the morning she would be in Luxembourg. Foyers is a restaurant at which the French senators ate, and it was so far beyond my means that I had never even thought of going there. So, Foyers is a famous and expensive restaurant in Paris, and it is also in front of the French Senate building, and mainly senators ate there. So the writer had no capacity to go there. This is Foyot. But I was flattered, and I was too young to have learned to say no to a woman. The writer said that he was flattered by the lady, and at that time writer was very young, so he couldn't tell no to the lady. I had 80 francs, gold francs, to last me the rest of the month, and a modest luncheon should not cost more than 50 franc was called French currency at that time. Or that means French currency was called francs at that time. Now it is called euro. And the writer calculated that he had 80 francs, and he also thought that a modest luncheon would cost only 15 francs. If I could cut out coffee for the next 2 weeks, I could manage well enough. And he also planned that if he would not drink coffee for the next 2 weeks, then it would be easy to pass the month, to spend the month. I answered that I would meet my friend by correspondence at Foyers on Thursday at 12:30. So the lunch was arranged. She was not so young as I expected, and in appearance imposing rather than attractive. When the lady guest arrived, the writer found that she was not so young and also not so attractive as he expected. She was in fact a woman of 40, and she gave me the impression of having more teeth, white and large and even, than were necessary for any practical purpose. The lady guest was 40 years old, and she was showing her teeth unnecessarily all the time. She was talkative, but since she seemed inclined to talk about me, I was prepared to be an attentive listener. Not only that, the lady was speaking too much, but as she came to discuss about the writer's writing, so the writer became an attentive listener. I was startled when the bill of fare was brought, for the prices were a great deal higher than I had anticipated. Bill of fare means menu, When the menu of the food was brought, the writer found that the prices of the food are very expensive than his expectation. But she assured me, I never eat anything for luncheon. She said, Oh, don't say that, I answered generously. But the lady guest at first told that she never ate anything for luncheon. I never eat more than one thing. I think people eat far too much nowadays. A little fish, perhaps. I wondered if they have any salmon. But the next moment she said that she would not mind if she is if she was served by a salmon. Salmon, one kind of fish. And it is also tasty, delicious and expensive. This is salmon fish, and after cooking it looks like this. Well, it was early in the year for salmon and it was not on the bill of fare. But I asked the waiter if there was any. Okay? Salmon is a seasonal fish, so at that time the season was not for the salmon fish. So the writer asked the waiter if they had any salmon at that time. Yes, a beautiful salmon had just come in. It was the first they had had. The waiter replied that they got the first salmon of the season just then. I ordered it for my guest. The waiter asked her if she would have something while it was being cooked. Then the waiter asked the lady guest if she wanted anything during the salmon being cooked. No, she answered. I never eat more than one thing unless you have a little caviar. I never mind caviar. Okay. Actually, it is the habit of the lady guest at first to say no. So she again said no at first, but then she added that she would never mind if the waiter could give her some caviar. Caviar means large fish egg, and it is also very expensive. My heart sank a little. I knew I could not afford caviar, but I could not very well tell her that. I told the waiter by all means to bring caviar. For myself, I chose the cheapest dish on the menu, and that was a mutton chop. By hearing the name of caviar, the writer became disappointed, and he knew the original name of the caviar, but politely or generously he ordered the caviar for his guest, and for himself he ordered the cheapest menu, the cheapest dish of the menu, and that was a mutton chop. Dear students, these are caviar, egg fish egg, sorry. I think you are unwise to eat meat, she said. I don't know how you can expect to work after eating heavy things like chops. I don't believe in overloading my stomach. So the lady rebuked the writer because he had ordered mutton chop for himself. Then came the question of drink. I never drink anything for luncheon, she said. Neither do I answered promptly. So, in the question of drink, the lady guest again first said that she never drink anything, and the writer also tried that the lady guest wouldn't take any drink. So he also said that he didn't drink anything also. Except white wine, she proceeded as though I had not spoken. These French white wines are so light. They are wonderful for the digestion. What would you like? I asked, hospitable still, but not exactly effusive. She gave me a bright and amicable flush of her white teeth. My doctor won't let me drink anything but champagne. Then the lady guest expressed her desire. She wanted to drink champagne because her doctor had only suggested champagne for her, and she also said that this is not harmful for health, rather it is helpful. I fancy I turned a trifle pale because champagne was very expensive. Sorry. I ordered half a bottle. I mentioned casually that my doctor had absolutely forbidden me to drink champagne. So there is no other option. So the writer ordered half bottle champagne for his lady guest, and for himself he chose only water. What are you going to drink then? The lady guest asked. Water, the writer replied. She ate the caviar and she ate the salmon. She talked gaily of art and literature and music. But I wondered what the bill would come to. So their conversation was going on, but the writer was frightened by the thought that how much the bill would come. When my mutton chop arrived, she took me quite seriously to task. Took someone seriously to task is a phrase. It means rebuke or scold. I see that you are in the habit of eating so heavy luncheon. I am sure it's a mistake. Why don't you follow my example and just eat one thing? I am sure you would feel ever so much better for it. I am only going to eat one thing, I said, as the waiter came again with the bill of fare. She waved him aside with an airy gesture. So the waiter again brought the menu to them, and as usual, the lady at first showed no interest. But then, no, I never eat anything for luncheon. Just a bite. I never want more than that. And I eat that more as an excuse for conversation than anything else. I couldn't possibly eat anything more unless they had some of those Giant asparagus. I should be sorry to leave Paris without having some of them. Then the lady guest wanted to eat or taste asparagus. Asparagus is also very famous in France. Only it grows in France, and they are very large and juicy and tasty and delicious. These are asparagus, raw asparagus, and these are cooked asparagus. My heart sank. I had seen them in the shops, and I knew that they were horribly expensive. My mouth had often watered at the sight of them. As the asparagus were very tasty and expensive, the writer also had interest to enjoy them, but he had no capacity to taste asparagus. Madam wants to know if you have any of those giant asparagus, I asked the waiter. I tried with all my might to will him to say no. A happy smile spread over his broad, priest-like face, and he assured me that they had some so large, so splendid, so tender, that it was a marvel. As it was very expensive, asparagus was very expensive, the writer wholeheartedly tried that the waiter might say no, that they had no asparagus, but happened just the opposite. I am not in the least hungry, my guest shied. But if you insist, I don't mind having some asparagus. I ordered them. Aren't you going to have any? No, I never eat asparagus, the writer replied. I know there are people who don't like them. The fact is, you ruin your palate by all the meat you eat. But we know that the fact is just the opposite. The writer also loved asparagus, but this time he said that he never eat asparagus. And then the lady guest told him that he had ruined his taste or appetite to eat anything because he had eaten mutton chop, meat. Palate means taste or appetite. We waited for the asparagus to be cooked. Panic seized me. It was not a question now of how much money I should have left over for the rest of the month, but whether I had enough to pay the bill. So the writer is now very much disappointed, and he thought that whether he could pay the bill or not. The asparagus appeared. They were enormous, succulent, and appetizing. The smell of the melted butter tickled my nostrils. The cooked asparagus appeared, and to see these, the writer also became tempted, because the asparagus were so large, so juicy, and so appetizing. Coffee? I said. Yes, just an ice cream and coffee, she answered. Then the writer offered the lady coffee, and the lady added ice cream with the coffee. I was past caring now, so I ordered coffee for myself and an ice cream and coffee for her. You know, there is one thing I thoroughly believe in, she said, as she ate the ice cream. One should always get up from a meal feeling one could eat a little more. Are you still hungry? I asked faintly. Oh no, I am not hungry. You see, I don't eat luncheon. I have a cup of coffee in the morning and then dinner. But I never eat more than one thing for luncheon. I was speaking for you. Oh, I see. The lady guest then said that everybody should keep some space in their stomach empty so that they can eat more things. And the lady guest then told about her everyday diet. In the morning, she drank only a cup of coffee, and she then took her dinner. And for lunch, she took only one dish. Then a terrible thing happened. While we were waiting for the coffee, the head waiter, with an ingratiating smile on his false face, came up to us bearing a large basket full of huge peaches. Peach, one kind of expensive fruit. And so, when they are waiting for coffee, the head waiter brought a basket full of peaches. They had the blush of an innocent girl. They had the rich tone of an Italian landscape. But surely peaches were not in season then. Lord knew what they cost. So, peach is also a seasonal fruit, and it was not the season for peach, but the head waiter brought it anyhow. These are pieces, and after cutting, it looks like this. You see, you have filled your stomach with a lot of meat. My one miserable little job. And you can't eat any more. But I have just had a snack, and I shall enjoy a peach. The lady guest said that she had only had a snack, so she could enjoy peach. The bill came, and when I paid it, I found that I had only enough for a quite inadequate tip. Her eyes rested for an instant on the 3 francs I left for the waiter, and I knew that she thought me mean. But when I walked out of the restaurant, I had the whole month before me and not a penny in my pocket. So the bill came with 77 francs, and there was only 3 francs to give tip to the waiter, and it was not adequate. But the writer said that when he came out the fort, he had the whole month before him and he had no money. Follow my example, she said as we shook hands, and never eat more than one thing for luncheon. The lady guest then advised the writer to follow her example and to take only one thing for luncheon. I will do better than that, I retorted. I will eat nothing for dinner tonight. We know that this is fact, that the writer had no money to buy his dinner, but the lady guest took as a humor. Humorist, she cried gaily, jumping into a cab. You are quite a humorist. But I have had my revenge at last. I do not believe that I am a vindictive man, but when the immortal gods take a hand in the matter, it is pardonable to observe the result with complacency. Today she weighs 21 stone. So then the story again comes to the present, the writer said that he had his revenge on the lady, not directly but indirectly, because the lady is now overweight by, by the habit of her taking excessive food, and her weight is now 133 kg. Okay, dear students, that's all for today. Thank you all. Stay home and